In the last episode, we witnessed Haejun's absolute nadir in life and her incredible resilience in forging a path to happiness through her unwavering ambition to become a doctor and carve out a prominent place for herself in society. After consoling the distraught family members of a VIP patient, Haejun was en route to her office when Dr. Choi intercepted her, launching into a confrontational tirade. He adamantly pointed out that while Haejun may have assisted him during the VIP patient's operation, she mustn't allow it to inflate her ego, as he was the primary force behind the success. Haejun, recollecting her attempt to offer advice to Dr. Choi during the surgery, realized that it might have irked him. Nevertheless, she calmly clarified that her actions were solely driven by her dedication to the patient's well-being. Dr. Choi proceeded to question her competence, insinuating whether she truly believed that graduating from Hankook University and enjoying favoritism from Dr. Park were sufficient credentials. Furthermore, he cynically challenged her expectation of gratitude for her compassionate interaction with the VIP patient's parents. Dr. Choi disdainfully asserted that he had no need for her benevolence. Haejun's fury reached a boiling point as she listened to Dr. Choi's remarks, and she exploded with a torrent of words. Does Dr. Choi even grasp the essence of charity, she demanded. Does he truly believe it's a walk in the park? He's completely oblivious to his own glaring flaws. He likely imagines I cunningly usurped his position. He's so consumed by baseless gossip that he lashes out at innocent bystanders. Dr. Choi's retort was a thunderous exclamation, "How dare you? There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I've committed no wrongdoing." Haejun couldn't fathom Dr. Choi's persistent blindness to his own faults. He's utterly absorbed in others' opinions, unable to see his own proficiency, she reflected. I meticulously scrutinized every surgery Dr. Choi participated in, ready to call out any misstep, despite our lack of rapport. His fundamental issue is his lack of belief in his own abilities, plain and simple. With a final declaration that she wouldn't squander her invaluable generosity on him, Haejun stormed away. As the lift ascended, she pondered regretfully that she shouldn't have engaged Dr. Choi at all. In the office, Yihan sits with the director to discuss crucial hospital matters. Suddenly, a pang of frustration hits him as he recalls Haejun's unfulfilled promise to call. Yihan boldly brings up the topic of the heart transplant center in front of the director, causing a flicker of surprise to dance across the director's face. Undeterred, Yihan forges ahead, citing rumors that the center was pledged to the head of the CS Center, with other interested parties vying for its establishment. The director nods in agreement, acknowledging the competing interests, but reiterates his previous stance: converting the land into a shopping mall would be a far more lucrative endeavor. But we're not in the business of malls, we're in the business of saving lives, Yihan retorts pointedly. Sensing Yihan's urgency, the director attempts to placate him, urging caution and deliberation. He suggests bringing the matter up in the upcoming budget meeting to ensure everyone's voice is heard. Let's approach this methodically and with thoroughness, he advises. Why rush when we can proceed with care? Yihan nods in agreement with the director, expressing his trust that the director will tackle this challenging task with dedication. However, a shadow of concern crosses the director's face as he departs. Left alone in his office, Yihan is interrupted by a phone call, but his hope for it to be from Haejun is dashed when he hears Mr. Kang's voice on the other end. Disappointed, Yihan listens as Kang asks if he'll be attending a wedding over the weekend. Perplexed, Yihan questions the relevance of the event to the hospital. Kang explains that the groom is the grandson of the head of Chungwon Hospital, named Kang Joo-hyun, currently a doctor at Hankook University Hospital. Kang hints at Joo-hyun's future ascent to chairman at Chungwon and suggests it would be wise to establish a connection now. However, Yihan declines the invitation, stating he'll wait until Joo-hyun assumes the chairmanship. With that, he ends the call. Just as he turns around, he's startled by a voice. It's Haejun, standing before him. With a warm smile, Haejun informs Yihan that she knocked because his secretary wasn't there, though she supposes he didn't hear her. Yihan inquires about what she's holding. Haejun explains that she brought it just in case people questioned her motives for visiting him, believing it would lend her a more serious demeanor. Yihan commends her foresight and draws nearer. Haejun adds that she encountered Director Han on her way, who seemed to be glaring at her, leaving her to ponder if she had done something wrong. Yihan dismisses her concerns as impossible. Seizing the plastic heart anatomy from Haejun's hand, he tosses it onto the sofa. Taking her hand, Haejun immediately protests, reminding him they're in a hospital. Yihan places her hand on his chest, remarking that he's well aware, as it's his hospital. Haejun cautiously insists they can't engage in such behavior here. Yihan questions what they can't do here, prompting Haejun's surprise. Yihan places her hand over his heart and asks why it's behaving strangely. Can she offer an explanation? Haejun suggests with a hint of playfulness that it's beating like that because he likes her. Yihan pulls her closer and kisses her passionately. Then, he queries if she's finished for the day and if she's free this weekend. Haejun abruptly pulls back, informing him she already has plans for the weekend, which is why she came to see him. Yihan presses for details about her plans, and Haejun reveals she's attending a wedding. At the wedding, Haejun encounters Oreo, who exclaims with heightened anxiety that he was seriously worried she wouldn't show up today. Haejun, taken aback, questions why he would think that. Oreo leans in, his voice laced with urgency, revealing that he's well aware of the tension surrounding Yihan's reluctance to build the heart transplant center, supposedly influenced by the chairman of Jaeil Hospital. He adds that Haejun has been tirelessly going the extra mile to sway Yihan's decision. Haejun sharply commands Oreo to cease his gossiping and demands to know where Daein is. Her face lights up with sheer delight upon laying eyes on Daein, resplendent in her wedding attire. Recalling her conversation with Yihan earlier in his office, Haejun shares how they used to nickname the youngest member of their team, Snow White, back when she was in CS at Hankook University. Yihan, visibly intrigued, probes whether Snow White's wedding brings her such immense joy. Haejun grins broadly, asserting that seeing Daein all grown up and getting married is simply overwhelming. She then informs Yihan that she'll be staying late at the wedding, apologizing for the inconvenience. Yihan questions the reason for her extended stay, prompting Haejun to explain that the groom, Kang Joo-hyun, was also part of their team and is hailed as a living legend in the CS world. Yihan's eyes gleam with fascination at the mention of Dr. Kang Joo-hyun's name. Once more, Haejun apologizes for not informing him earlier, but Yihan reassures her that it's perfectly fine. Amidst the celebratory atmosphere of the wedding, Haejun finds herself consumed with thoughts of Yihan, puzzled by the inexplicable emptiness gnawing at her despite his reassurances. In the office, Haejun eagerly extends an invitation to Yihan to join her at the wedding. However, she swiftly retracts the offer, citing the presence of numerous hospital workers who tend to engage in gossip. At the wedding, Daein urgently calls out to Haejun, informing her that Seo Yihan, who will be joining their department next year, is surrounded by people. Their friends have been meticulously watching over him, exactly as Haejun instructed, to ensure he doesn't stray. Haejun is thrown into confusion, questioning whether she truly instructed them to do so. She then queries Daein about the groom, Dr. Kang. Daein points him out by the door. Haejun attempts to approach him, but suddenly freezes in her tracks. There stands Yihan, engaged in conversation with Kang. Haejun is bewildered by Yihan's presence and musters her resolve to approach him. She confronts Yihan, demanding an explanation. Yihan grins, casually commenting that perhaps fate brought them together at the wedding. Suddenly, someone calls out to Haejun, prompting her to dart back and forth as she attends to various requests. Yihan watches with growing frustration as Haejun is pulled in different directions. He begins to sulk, lamenting that the people calling Haejun could have at least allowed her to enjoy the banquet instead of making her run around. Despite making the effort to be there, Yihan feels deeply disappointed that he still can't spend time with her. Meanwhile, Dr. Kang approaches Yihan and inquires if he has eaten yet. Yihan bows respectfully, praising the ceremony. Dr. Kang notices Yihan's unwavering gaze on Haejun and remarks that she's incredibly busy but exceptionally talented. He expresses confidence that she will only become more remarkable with time. Yihan concurs with Kang, recalling how Kang's grandfather used to fret over whether he'd be too preoccupied to find a life partner. Yihan expresses surprise that Kang managed to find the time, considering he hadn't been back from the States for long. Kang reveals that it was precisely his hectic schedule that motivated him to settle down. He confesses that he couldn't fathom the purpose of leading such a busy life alone, especially after putting in so much effort. Kang desired to finally have something constant in his life. Yihan once again congratulates Kang on his wedding and bids him farewell. Meanwhile, Haejun searches for Yihan in vain. Dr. Kim approaches her, teasingly asking if she's upset about missing the banquet. Haejun denies it, but Dr. Kim jests that she's already married to cardiothoracic surgery, implying she wouldn't need to worry about such social events. In her mind, Haejun scoffs at the exaggeration, reminding herself that she actually has a boyfriend. Dr. Kim then drops a bombshell, revealing that the chairman of Jaeil Hospital is present and is rumored to be sharing some exciting news soon. Apparently, he's getting married. When Chairman Kang was preparing Kang's wedding gifts, he had trouble finding suitable jewelry because Chairman Seo's mother had already bought up all the finest pieces in Seoul in anticipation of her eldest son's wedding. Haejun's head spins at the revelation. She anxiously asks if Dr. Kim knows anything about the bride-to-be. Dr. Kim admits he doesn't have much information but heard that Kang's mother described her as the perfect daughter-in-law for their family. Haejun's heart sinks as she realizes that if she's being described as the perfect daughter-in-law, it can't possibly be her. Dr. Kim brushes off their previous conversation, stating that it's irrelevant to them, and instead redirects the discussion to Haejun's future. He reveals that they're planning to establish a transplant center in Ilsan and expresses his interest in recommending her for a position there. Overwhelmed, Haejun finds herself speechless. Before she can respond, someone calls for Dr. Kim's attention, prompting him to bid Haejun farewell with the advice to think it over as there's still time. Haejun stands there, her mind racing. She tells herself not to jump to conclusions, it's just a rumor, and Yihan would never betray her like that. Suddenly, she hears Yihan's voice calling her name from behind. Startled, she turns to find him holding flowers. Haejun questions where he disappeared to and what's with the flowers. Yihan raises the flowers, offering them to Haejun, stating he had a sudden urge to buy them. Haejun accepts them, puzzled, and asks why he did this. Yihan simply responds that he just felt like he should. When Yihan arrives at his parents' home, his mother eagerly inquires if he'll be staying for dinner. Yihan firmly denies, stating he only came to pick up something. Suddenly, he halts and turns to look back in the direction of Yuhan. Startled, Yuhan questions why Yihan is staring at him when he hasn't even spoken. Without a word, Yihan's mother calls him closer, directing his attention to items in a box that Yuhan used to play with as a kid. Yihan's gaze fixates on a letter nestled within the box, the first sincere thing he's come across in countless days. Addressed to the Dear Anonymous Benefactor, the letter mentions that she was informed he didn't want his name to be known, so she won't reveal hers either. However, she expresses unwavering belief that when they finally meet, he'll know her name by then, as long as he believes in her. Though short, the letter convinces Yihan to pen his first and likely final response. Reflecting on his past experiences, Yihan admits to never feeling a shred of sincerity from the countless documents and messages inundating him since entering the business world. Witnessing people go to great lengths to elicit even the slightest reaction from him fills him with profound regret for not safeguarding the letter earlier. If Yihan had realized its significance earlier, he would have displayed it proudly, using it as a testament to true sincerity that he could have shown to everyone who attempted to approach him. Since then, Yihan has only felt a similar kind of sincerity when Haejun presented him with her amateurish yet heartfelt contract. He understands the desperation Haejun must have felt, but things have changed now. When Yihan overheard others talking to Haejun as if he were an outsider that day, he could have called someone to prepare an even grander banquet. Instead, he rushed to a nearby flower shop because he wanted to give them to Haejun as soon as possible. All he wanted was to see her smile. Yihan knew that when Haejun forced herself to smile, the right corner of her lips trembled. After accepting the flowers, when Haejun asked Yihan if he had anything to say to her, Yihan questioned himself if he really did. Surely Haejun was smart enough to understand the significance of his actions, right? Initially, Yihan frowned in exasperation, but then he was left speechless out of confusion. He hadn't anticipated that it would be socially acceptable for him to propose at someone else's wedding. Just as Yihan was about to speak, Haejun's wide smile caught him off guard. She expressed her liking for the flowers, but Yihan could see the faint tremors on the right side of her lips. Suddenly, Yihan snaps back from his thoughts and stands up, staring at the letter in his hands. Then, he dashes towards a table, opens a drawer of his desk, and starts comparing the new letter with each other. Both letters bear the same bunny symbol, prompting Yihan to laugh. He realizes that the letter he received years ago was none other than from Haejun herself. At the hospital, Haejun's disciple urgently informs her that the interpreter is running late, emphasizing that Haejun needs to inform the patient to wait just a little longer. The disciple adds that it sounded like Haejun had a pretty good grasp of German when she introduced herself the first time. Haejun scratches her head in frustration, realizing that the introduction was the extent of her German abilities. Despite her limited knowledge, Haejun attempts to convey to the foreign patient in German that his interpreter will be arriving late, urging him to wait a little longer. The patient expresses his gratitude to Haejun for helping him and improving his health. Haejun's disciple suggests that she wait for a moment while he calls the interpreter to ask if they can provide assistance over the phone. Alone in the room with the foreign patient, he speaks to his bodyguard in German and sends him outside with the luggage. Then, addressing Haejun directly in German, he expresses his desire to invite her to his home country. Haejun, unable to understand him, assumes he's expressing gratitude and decides to simply nod along. Just as Haejun anticipates the arrival of the interpreter, there's a knock on the door. Her hopes rise, expecting it to be the interpreter, but to her surprise, Yihan enters the room. Some time ago, Yihan was in his office when Secretary Kong barged in, urgently informing Yihan that the VIP patient would be discharged that day, instructing Yihan to drive him to the airport. Yihan quickly asks if the patient has already recovered. Kong confirms that indeed he has, and he himself has been diligently investigating the matter Yihan discussed the day before. However, Kong mentions it will take some time to prepare. Yihan, filled with frustration, exclaims that there are countless jewelry stores in Seoul, so it couldn't possibly be that difficult unless someone was deliberately buying up all the jewelry. Suddenly, Yihan recalls the unsettling possibility of his mother being the culprit behind this ordeal. Without warning, Yihan's mother and Yuhan storm into the office, prompting Yihan to immediately confront his mother. He demands to know if she's behind the mysterious depletion of jewels in all the jewelry shops. His mother visibly twitches at the accusation, attempting to justify herself by stating that she knows she's being hasty, but insists that seizing opportunities is crucial. To everyone's surprise, Yihan finds himself in agreement with his mother. His mother is taken aback by this unexpected turn of events, seeking confirmation from Yihan to ensure he truly agrees with her. Without hesitation, Yihan nods emphatically, firmly standing by his mother's side. Mother cherishes Yihan's agreement, expressing that it's finally happening. However, Yihan interrupts her, informing her that he's going to take his own time and wait. Despite her excitement, Mother agrees with Yihan, refraining from pushing further, fearing that he might change his mind. She simply instructs Yuhan to accompany her, and they both prepare to leave. Yuhan suggests that since they've come this far, they should at least meet Haejun before departing. Kong offers to call Haejun from the VIP ward, but Mother dismisses the idea, explaining that Haejun must already be stressed from dealing with the VIP patient, and they shouldn't add to her burden. Ever the provocateur, Yuhan teasingly suggests to Yihan that what if the VIP patient falls in love with Haejun? Perhaps a prince-like figure could whisk her away. Yihan, feeling uncomfortable, abruptly stands up from his chair and exits the office without uttering a word. Yuhan, bewildered, wonders if he said something wrong. In the present, Haejun is surprised to see Yihan in the room. Yihan explains that he heard the VIP patient is being discharged today, so he came to say goodbye. Haejun, feeling a bit uneasy after what happened last night when Yihan gave her flowers and she couldn't properly respond, had been avoiding him. She explains the situation with the patient, mentioning that the patient only speaks German and the interpreter is running late. Upon learning this, Haejun realizes that Yihan speaks German and asks him to translate some aftercare instructions to the patient. Yihan introduces himself to the patient and congratulates him on the successful surgery. The patient reciprocates, expressing gratitude and attributing the success to the talented doctor here. As Haejun begins to explain the aftercare instructions, Yihan interrupts, stating to the patient that he's not just saying this because he and Haejun are in a relationship, but that she is truly an excellent doctor. The patient, surprised, remarks that he didn't know Dr. Haejun was in a relationship, let alone with someone at the hospital. Yihan tries to explain that Haejun is very committed to her work, which is why they don't see each other much despite working in the same building. A subtle tension starts to build between Yihan and the patient, leaving Haejun perplexed by the sudden cold exchange. Finally, Yihan bids the patient farewell, expressing their immense relief at his restored health and acknowledging the likelihood of never meeting again. With a somber countenance, the patient takes his leave, leaving a sense of melancholy in the air. Sensing Yihan's sudden shift in mood, Haejun questions if he missed something the patient was trying to convey, noticing his unexpected sadness. Yihan swiftly dismisses any insinuations, asserting that at least they now know his melancholy isn't due to any heart-related issues. In the lobby, the long-awaited interpreter arrives and encounters the departing patient. Engaging in conversation in German, they share a few words before the patient departs, leaving behind an air of mystery. Haejun's disciple rushes over, apologizing for his tardiness as he awaited the interpreter's arrival at the entrance. Haejun reassures him, explaining that Yihan assisted with the translation, alleviating any concerns. Yihan's gaze lingers on Haejun and her disciple before silently departing without uttering a single word. Grateful for his help, Haejun thanks him, although her thoughts begin to swirl with uncertainty. She ponders whether she should have confronted him directly that day, but the fear of hearing his response held her back. She questions whether she could have maintained her composure as he delivered his answer with his characteristic coldness. Approaching Haejun in the lobby, the interpreter delivers an unexpected message from the VIP patient. VIP patient's request to convey his congratulations to Haejun catches Haejun off guard, highlighting the unexpected twists and turns of the day.